Do email writing and stuff, so I do, but I also feel a bit fucking tired, to be quite frank. I feel like I might want to just stick in a wee audiobook here, and, like, just, I don't want to do it right now. That's the thing, I don't feel like writing right this second. I'm hoping, you never know. Soon as they start it, I always end up feeling better about it. But it's like,
Running an inn weren't my plan. Krogar's house? It's a real pit. Most folk won't go near it. Krogar claims it was a hearth fire. That's what they say. See, it ain't right moving in
a
with a
man
new
after my
lord the
own
day
heart.
after. Aye. Our Jarl would sure like to know if he... Here, take a look at this. Some of the Jarl's men came by and left this bounty letter. Slow. No, it just ain't there at all. Few enough reasons to pass through Morthal before the war started. Now, well, let's just say the front door doesn't get much use. Sure thing. It's yours for a day. I'll show you to your room. Right this way. Yeah,
Yeah, more fall is better. I mean, you got a single bed. That's not
Let me
bad.
know if there's anything else you
I'm
need.
not single, I'm not. It's not fucking, it's a queen size. Fuck. Alright, so we got a nice wee 5 foot kip. Well rested, but we're fucking starving. Dragon skill provides extra month. Oh, I did not know that. Good to know. Pig. Alright, so. I don't really want to call the coppers. I mean, call them scum, etc. But. You're gonna only. No,
It's about the mill. I don't have time to talk. Too much to do.
fair enough. I'm not even interested in you, mate. I have business. I feel like sticking on an audiobook or something today. And listening to that and like kind of zoning out and just. Yeah. I got food there. KFs and chips, but I do feel like just kind of zoning out a bit for a wee while. Properly zoning out, but not thinking about the story at all. Alright, hold on. Let's find something to stick on as background noise here, shall we? Fuck, I haven't gone at this all fucking day. And I've only got like a bit done. I mean, Jesus. Alright. Then again, I mean, I'm not up. Oh.
UK on alert as new IRA hatches civil war plot to drive migrants out of Ireland. Now, there's a little bit of information regarding this, but I'll...
And it'll start here as well. But see, this, I don't want to pay attention to this stuff. I don't want to do it. A good audiobook. What do we want? Yeah. I know that. I don't want anything like that. No.
So here's something that's just happened the other day, and it's basically see when it comes to like weapons and stuff like that, our laws are very, very weird and very, very strange. Right, so I'm going to go into this. Basically, this police officer did screw up though.
I can own a baseball bat. I've got tons of weapons. Fuck, man. And that's just a new. Never mind when I was a wee guy. Fuck, I used to have full blown ninja swords and all sorts of shit. Man, I mean, I still got some shit, but I mean, when I was a kid, man, I had all sorts of shit. I used to practice with my ninja sword in the room.
Around with this camera, don't worry, I'll fix it whenever I can be bothered.
Alright, so. Let's see. Maybe I could put that on Audible. Rather than YouTube. Like, yeah. YouTube has got some good audiobooks and that on it, so it does, but, yeah. No. I've been putting that Read the Wolf, actually. 19th August. Alright, so 9 days I got a new book, so do. Alright, so Red Dwarf. And this Red Dwarf, apparently, I'm not sure, I think this takes place before, like, the actual, like, Red Dwarf, like, this is taking place on Titan. Okay. Hold on. Okay, Ganymede Titan, yes sir, I've been around. Yes, that is a song from Red Dwarf, the TV show, which I just remembered, just because it says Red Dwarf Titan. From Ganymede Titan, yes sir, I've been around. Alright, let's go, shall we?
This is Audible. Gollancz presents Red Dwarf Titan by Rob Branch and Andrew Marshall. Read by Chris Barry.
Hold on, no. I just had to sync up to something there, hold on. I need to get the last rough. Down. There we go. Fully relax. And zoning.
3,039 years ago, and one universe to the side. Lua. Titan, moon of Saturn, the domed spaceport of Xanadu, humankind's most far-flung outpost. Uptown, Astor Oak Tower, the Pleiades Hotel, penthouse suite. The croissant had unexpectedly led to her certain death. He was there, the big cheese, the brute corse himself. He shouldn't have been in it. He shouldn't have been in his room at that time. He was never in his room before 8:03. Never. That was the arrangement. This always gave her ample time to set the croissant inside the linen napkin, which had been folded into a swan, the hotel monogram on its beak, activate his kombuchana percolator, place one yellow tulip in the slender crystal bud vase, and skedaddle. Ample time. She was already well into the room before she was aware of his presence. His back was to her, and if she'd only kept her head down. But she'd been shocked, and had inadvertently glanced up. For the merest instant, she'd caught a glimpse of his face in the mirror. She dropped her head immediately, and covered it well, she thought. She flipped on the percolator, and turned to the door. She walked normally, she reckoned. Normal speed, nothing to see here. I didn't see your face, honestly. She swept her right palm across the door sensor. Nothing happened. Her palm was too sweaty. She surreptitiously wiped it on her apron. Sweaty, sweaty. Don't be sweating. She waved again, fixing her eyes on the small tattoo of Newton's second law of motion on the back of her hand to distract her from the panic threatening to turn her bowels into the bagpipes of the Black Watch. And she was in the corridor. She was alive and in the corridor. Don't panic. He hadn't realized she'd seen him. Had he? She pushed the hover trolley towards the lift. She was suddenly aware she was going faster and faster. Of course he'd seen her. For the briefest zeptosecond, 1 sextillionth of a second, their eyes had met. He'd seen her see him, and now she was dead. Or worse. She'd heard rumors of much, much worse. The bagpipes had now been replaced by a giant deadly squid trying to escape through her windpipe. She swept the elevator sensor plate with the palm of her
That's
sweaty
fine,
hand.
apparently.
Zilch. She wiped and swept again, all the while resisting the gnawing impulse to glance back down the corridor. Why wasn't the elevector coming? Was it already too late? Would it even be safe? Cameras everywhere. He could surely override the controls. He could do anything. Then Miss Duplessis wrenched open the door to the emergency stairs and started racing down. Why was this happening, and why now? She'd been maddeningly close to achieving her dream. Just another 52 Earth days in this rotten, soul-destroying service job, and she'd have been free. She'd always known she was working for a very bad man, and that's why the pay was so juicy. But his notorious obsession with anonymity had been supposed to protect her. What a waste her life appeared now. A life locked in relentless study, with but one aim. And now that would never happen. Now she'd never be able to take applied mathematics to the culture-starved mushroom shovelers in the caves of her MIP. They would never know the pure poetry of integral calculus. She realized after 13 lung-burning flights, she was still pointlessly pushing the hover trolley. She stopped to gather her wits. She had to think this through. She had a beautiful, logical, mathematical brain. It was time to use it. Just running away was clearly futile. He could track precisely where she was at all times, anywhere in the settlement, through her Doma's implant chip. Her and every other Doma in Xanadu.
Doma?
The solution was nauseatingly
Person
inevitable.
would stay under the domes.
She tugged open the trolley's steel drawers and clattered through the breakfast cutlery selection. It wasn't easy digging out the implant in
Okay.
the palm with a croissant knife.
Yeah, I think that.
No point in bleating. It was that or the jam spoon. She twisted a swan napkin around her clumsily lacerated hand, dropped the bloody implant into the drawer, and set the hover trolley racing down the rest of the stairs. Assuming 45 more flights at 10 meters per flight, and taking into account increasingly violent collisions with the walls, it would ultimately achieve approximately 76.5 miles per hour. If his goons were waiting for her at the bottom, they'd get a hurtling steel box full of baked goods in the teeth for their troubles. Now what? Now she was a non-person. No ID, no money, no passport. She had less substance than a hologram. She heard the clang of the door from above, and some heavy feet on the stairs. Up was out, and down was out. It had to be sideways. She burst back out into the corridor. To her right, there was a large triangular picture window looking out to the hotel spires beyond. Frantically, she calculated the index of the protoglass and the tensile strength of the sheet, and thus where its weakest point would be. Then she battered it with a fire extinguisher till it smashed. A refreshing blast of cold air ruffled her bangs as she peered out and down. She had 15 seconds before the protoglass began to
God's sake.
self-repair. She stepped onto the sill,
And
420 meters to the
for
ground.
fuck's sake, there we go.
At a constant acceleration of 9.8 meters per second squared, she would hit the floor at 202 miles per hour. But what if she turned her gravity compensators off? That reduced the acceleration to 1.3 meters per second squared and the speed to 73.9 miles per hour. She would still come out like raspberry jelly. There was one slim hope. At the 400-meter level, just below her, swarms of taxicabs jetted between the wonders of Uptown. If she could jump and land on one of those, the 16 miles per hour impact would be painful, but survivable. If. She glanced back. The protoglass was now solid again behind her. No other way. She picked out a cab, calculated its distance and velocity, snapped off her boot's G-comps, took a deep breath, and jumped. She fixed her eyes on the taxi rushing towards her. It was open top. Good, but there was a passenger. very bad. Suddenly, the sky darkened, and the taxi was in shadow. Alarmed, she glanced up to glimpse the gargantuan silhouette of a Jupiter Mining Corporation behemoth high above. A monstrous crimson leviathan of a vessel was almost blocking out the sun. She looked back towards the taxi, her eyes adjusting, as she hit it with a bone-jarring crash. Janssen van Veeren was having a very bad morning. It was a near-death experience cab ride, and he couldn't even distract himself by engaging in a trivial conversation with the taxi driver, because the driver was a brainless, grunting ape. Literally, a chimpanzee. Most sky cabs in Xanadu were piloted by various simians, hooked as liveware into the vehicle's piloting system via electrodes in their frontal lobes, concealed under their peaked caps. This was regarded as being preferable to the disastrous self-driving tech that had taken so many innocent, unsuspecting lives in the previous century. The apes were, essentially, biological robots, adding their eyes and ears, and most importantly, their compulsion to stay alive, to the safety of the passengers. Unfortunately, most monkeys, apes, and especially this chimp were really, really bad drivers, with really, really, really bad tempers. This whole journey had been a screeching nightmare, with Cabby Chimp narrowly avoiding a deadly sky rage incident with a moody baboon in a Skoda. Luckily, only some feces had been thrown. Unluckily, it was an open-top cab, and Janssen was now wearing a polka-dot shirt and face. Tragically, he would later look back on this as not the worst part of his morning. He fought the urge to look at his watch again. He was going to be cutting it fine, especially now he needed an extra 5 minutes to clean up. But he didn't want to risk aggravating the cabbie by asking him to please stop masturbating and keep his eyes on the traffic. The cab unexpectedly swerved sharply to the left to avoid a sluggardly orangutan towing a caravan. Janssen clutched the delicate Epimethean filigree vase tighter. Why on Io hadn't he wrapped it in acres of vacuum cavity wrap? The customer expected it to be delivered on time and intact. She was the caliber of customer you did not disappoint. Here's your priceless vase. Some assembly may be required. Would not cut the mustard. Abruptly, he was plunged into complete darkness. What escalating excruciation was this? It was far too early for the regular eclipse, and at least 6 days to the next nightfall. He looked up. Hoving overhead, a small fleet of sonic tugs, dragging it towards a static docking orbit, was the famous Red Dwarf. Suddenly, it was raining women, or rather, woman. A woman in a waitress uniform slammed into the seat next to him with an eardrum-busting shriek, as if she'd been shot out of a circus cannon at point-blank range. The chimp screamed and wrestled with the joystick as the cab yawed to the left, then even more violently to the right, tipping Janssen over the side. He swung precariously, his left hand clutching the wing mirror, his right hand holding the rim of the vase, as they hurtled through the morning rush hour frenzy. Terrified, he scanned the oncoming traffic in the air lane below, just in time to hoist his legs to avoid having them amputated by a gibbon in a speeding Pantechnicon. "Excuse me," he called out weakly to the taxi's new occupant. "I'm afraid this cab is taken." But the incoming passenger seemed momentarily dazed. She groaned painfully. "I wonder," Janssen burbled at a slightly higher pitch than normal, "if you might help me back inside." A head appeared over the top of the door. "I'm sorry, are you all right?" "Well, not really. My hand is beginning to slip." "Well, why don't you drop that vase?" Yes, why hadn't he dropped the vase? True, it was an almost perfect example of last century Epimethean filigree work, but in the end, it was just a vase. Yet, in the white heat of danger, he'd chosen to keep a hand on a frivolous rich woman's artifact, rather than protect his own life. What did that say about him? You could take professional ethics too far.
It's a rather valuable example of layered and sewer glaze embossed with Neo-Grecian...
He began, then stopped. Why was he attempting to initiate a fine art lecture while dangling like Harold Lloyd from the clock? In a moment, he might well plunge to his certain death. The waitress reached out her hand.
Pass it to me, then you'll have both hands free.
Jansen hesitated. He was excruciatingly aware his left arm was beginning to cramp, and he was losing feeling in the fingers. Could he trust her? Her eyes seemed honest, but then again, she was the type of person who hurled herself into other people's taxis from enormous heights. Suddenly, the chimp driver screeched and made a skittish swerve that sent Jansen penduluming, repeatedly banging his head against the cab door. That made up his mind. If he fell, the wretched thing was done for anyway. He delicately raised the vase towards her outstretched hand. She took it with reassuring gentleness, and his newly free hand gratefully grabbed the door handle. He breathed a sigh of relief, and then started to wonder what he was relieved about. He was still suspended hundreds of meters above a very sticky death. Her face appeared again.
Turn off your gravity compensators.
Yes, actually, that made brilliant sense. If he was almost 8 times lighter, it would be less strain on his arms and easier to climb back in. She was clearly a bright one. He lifted up one leg, then the other, and flipped the switches on his robes. Instantly, he felt almost buoyant. He was beginning to like this waitress. She smiled encouragingly, holding out her hands. He noticed one was wrapped in a blood-stained napkin, but the other bore the mathematical tattoo, F equals MA, which he found reassuringly intellectual.
It's terrible.
She'd need that to snag herself a passage off this suddenly lethal prison of a moon. Somewhere, anywhere, far away from the all-seeing gaze of that face she should never have seen. She pushed back her twinge of remorse for the plummeted antiques dealer. She would pay him back, one day, when all this horror had vanished into the past, and she was showered with tribute by the joyously grateful, mathematically enlightened mushroom shovelers of her myth. She tapped the chimp driver on the shoulder.
Downtown. Valferlo.
In Xanadu did Kubla Khan, a stately pleasure dome decree. Kubla Khan, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, 1816.
Goodbye. Grandson of
Chapter
Genghis.
1. Titan Skydog. Birth
Enemy
172.
the Titan, yes sir.
The lights flickered with a low hum, then flashed back on again, indicating Red Dwarf was now connected to Skydog energy. The ship was abuzz with preparations for shore leave. Crew members rushed from workstation to workstation, locking off their ongoing tasks, while mentally rehearsing quite how excessive their shore leave behavior was going to be. Scutters, small motorized claw-headed maintenance robots, scurried about performing their vital docking duties.
Enemy the Titan, yes sir. Mirror.
This talk, YABA in brackets Holly, the ship's ubiquitous BHI, beyond human intelligence, computer, projected his virtual disembodied head onto all screens, announced that docking protocol had been achieved, and those booked for shore leave should start making their way to the transfer tenders. Then, simultaneously answered 1,790 stupid questions with vaguely passive-aggressive comebacks, and reminded everyone that what happens on Titan doesn't stay on Titan, so wear condoms. Drill tunist. Fourth class. Olaf Peterson's alcohol-soaked brain was calculating just how many condoms he might need. Historically speaking, the number was close to 0. But he was ever the optimist. Word was, you could get anything downtown, anything you could imagine. Unfortunately, The things Peterson could imagine fell more into the realms of science fantasy than science fact. At the very least, he hoped to put the cowering remains of his liver through a jolly good workout. He elected for 12 condoms and a toothbrush as his only luggage. It wasn't even his toothbrush, which had conceded ignominious defeat to the crumbling medieval battlements that were his teeth some time ago, but needs must. Dr. Harold Godbold was in the med bay, instructing the staff to ready 200 stomach pumps, the entire ship's complement of limb casts and crutches, and 6 gross of assorted sutures. What could you do? The crew deserved their fun. After 4.5 months on board, they were bound to go mental. He gulped back an insect-based Ganymedian rum so stiff it had rigor mortis. This was going to be a long night. Literally. 36 hours of waiting to discover how many damn crew members he would lose this time. Well, he'd know soon enough. In the meantime, he ransacked the tranquilizer cupboard and stuffed random multicolored pills into his Pez dispenser. Captain Randolph Hollister rifled through his plaid trouser collection and selected the 3 with the most violently clashing colors, just to spite his absent wife. He was very much looking forward to this particular shore leave. A giant ship like Red Dwarf spewed thousands of spend-happy crew members right with accumulated back pay into the Titan economy. So it was natural the captain of such a vessel would be gifted one of the most luxurious suites in the most luxurious hotel for his entire stay, completely on the house. He grabbed his golf clubs and headed to the shuttle, dreaming of bottomless brunches, topless massages, and the solar-famous Imperial and Venerable Xanadu golf course, with its legendary methane lake trap on the 1.5-mile par 3 13th. Second Officer Francis Todhunter was packing reluctantly for shore leave. At the captain's insistence, he also had to stay in the most expensive hotel uptown, though he, of course, had to pay for his own room, which was roughly the size of a rabbit hutch, but not quite as fragrant, with wonderful views of the hotel's sewage reclamation plant. Not only that, to top it all, the captain would inevitably assume they'd be playing golf together. That was always a difficult one, because Hollister was the most dreadful golfer, and it was often quite difficult to lose to him. Still, that was the second officer's place in life, to underplay his own talents, while being subjected to the eye-burning sight of the ship's most wobbly arse wibbling in the solar system's most dreadful trousers on every single tee. Corporal, although actually she thought of herself as acting sergeant, even though nobody else did, Ingrid Jezebel Bile buckled up her Sam Brown and clipped on the industrial class, slightly illegal taser selection, which she had pimped up from videos on the Phantom Web. On board, security was dull and small-time. Shore patrol was what she lived for. Thousands of irresponsible idiots released into the wild, contravening regulations as if they'd never read all 642 pages. She hoped the morons resisted arrest. It made her hot. Mining operative, Class 2, Ed Tex Garcia, strolled past the cobalt smelting bay, grinning at the poor sad sacks sweating beams over the furnaces, and laughed cruelly to himself. All they could look forward to after 14 hours busting their asses was chowing down on the ship's monotonously recycled victuals, while he was going to spend every penny cent he'd accrued in salary gorging himself like a bulimic buzzard on the legendary street food of downtown Xanadu. He tipped his Stetson at them an ironic salute, tucked his thumbs in his belt, and almost line danced towards the shuttles. Trainee Assistant Purser Clifford Pear finished shaving and stood back to admire his handiwork. There was no discernible difference. He didn't really need to shave yet, but the others would rib him if he didn't. His face turned red at the very thought of more choruses of, "Here comes Peachy Cheeks! Stand back! I think his balls are going to drop!" And the one that got him yesterday, "Do you want a cup of tea, or are you still breastfed?" His face turned redder still at the recollection of the word breast. He shoved away this thought. This was his first shore leave, and he was determined to make it a cultural and artistic experience. At last, an escape from the relentless emasculation disguised as blokey banter that he suffered on a daily basis. Unaccountably, the word breast slammed into his brain again, and he had to splash his face with cold water. Navigation Officer Christine Kachansky opened the box of assorted dildos, attached them to springs, and began to glue them to various headbands. She wasn't terribly enamored of the effect, but acknowledged, with an eye-closed sigh, that it was traditional. At least she hadn't got saddled with inflating the giant balloon penises or sewing the flashing LED fairy lights to the underskirts. She double-checked her reservation at the Pleiades Hotel, even though she didn't really need to. She'd spent months communicating with the hotel via photon transmissions, pruning away at every cost. Even with all the compound discounts she'd managed to wring out of an extremely accommodating events organizer, she'd eaten up the next 2 months' salary. Still, if everything Themis had promised her was true, it would probably be worth it. Deep in the boweliest part of the living quarters, underneath the vast array of the ship's thumping generators, just within earshot of the clanking chains of the ore transit ducts and the never-repaired, perennially cascading, stinking water leak from the fish reservoir, in bunkroom 4047, 2 men were less than happy. Third technician David Lister had let himself go. He hadn't bitten his toenails in 3 weeks. That would have involved taking his socks off, which, by now, might well have resulted in the removal of several layers of skin and setting off the sprinklers. His heart was broken. More than broken. Shattered into 72 billion pieces, crushed underfoot by a 25-stone tap-dancing colossus wearing lead-lined Doc Martens with segs on, swept into a coffee grinder and reduced to dust, then passed through the digestive system of a dysenteric donkey and evacuated into the void of space.
That was bad.
And on top of this perpetual agony, there was another perpetual agony. Rimmer.
Oh, wow.
He glanced across at his less-than-perfect budget. Even now, with 15 minutes to go before disembarkation, the wiry-haired, pompous Smegwipe had his voluminous nostrils buried deep in one of his ridiculously massive textbooks and was incoherently chittering to himself like a neurotic squirrel who couldn't find his nuts. As if he was going to actually learn something for a change. Second technician Arnold Rimmer was not going to be beaten. He dragged his reluctant eyes back to the top of the page for the 17th time and ran his increasingly bleary vision over the text again. Ataphelion, the Earth is farthest from the Sun. Yes, that seemed quite reasonable. The celestial horizon is analogous to the virtual equator in the perihedral coordinate system. He nodded with slightly less confidence, and told himself that pretty much made sense. Sidereal hour angle is an hour circle of a celestial body as referenced from the mesh cardinal point of Aries. This made no sense at all. Aries? Where in the name of Benjamin Franklin's bifocal butt cheeks did Aries come from? This was astronavigation, not paranormal Pam, the planetary prognosticator. Okay, we'll come back to that later. The auto-sextant altitude corrected for hybrid inaccuracies in the digital instrument array and height of eye may be referred to as the apparent altitude of the ecliptic, or Berthold's final fulcrum. He stared into space for several seconds, frowning. What had the height of his eye got to do with anything? What if you were a short guy? And who was this Berthold person? Still,
welcome to the winking
pressing
fever,
on.
friend.
The zenith of Capricorn may be regarded as being a nadir if Ophelia's perennium eclipses Berthold's analgesic eye height cardinal Richelieu. He slammed the book shut.
Hello, I'm Gizmo.
Alarmingly,
But you
a
can just
bead
call
of
me
perspiration
Aaron's
from his
sister.
forehead
Everyone
plopped
does.
softly on the cover. How on
Feel
earth
free
could
to
someone
make
as
requests.
obviously intelligent as himself work up a sweat reading astronavigation for gimboids?
He rounded furiously on Lister. Will you please stop doing that? What? Existing. I need to concentrate here, and every single damn thing about you is distracting. I'm just lying here breathing, Rimmer.
It's like me with my breath.
Exactly. Go and breathe somewhere else. Better still stop breathing altogether.
What do you want?
Just surrender to the inevitable. That promotion is way beyond you and always will be. Typical attitude of a perpetual loser. Never try to better yourself. Just put down those who do. You'll be a chicken soup machine repairman for the rest of your life. And you'll be the guy who supervises the chicken soup machine repairman for the rest of your life. Lister swung his legs over the bunk and rooted around in his bedside locker. Oh, Lister, Lister. I cannot wait till the day I receive my elevation to officer class, bedecked in all my dress uniform regalia, and you have to stand there and watch them slowly pin on my pips. Rimmer laughed for what Lister estimated to be roughly 25 minutes. You'll have to salute me every time I pass, and I'm going to pass you a lot, Milado. I'll parade up and down. I'll parade up and down like I'm on a Milan catwalk. You'll get RSI in your right wrist, and not from your customary leisure activities. Is that my furniture polish you're spraying your socks with? Lister checked the can. Yeah. Seals and protects with a pleasant lavender tang. I'm sorry to say the lavender tang may find itself in a bloody duel to the death with the particularly unpleasant tang that's already caused several flies to drop gasping to the floor in our airspace. Lister stood.
Feel free to make
There was a series of cracking sounds from his socks, like he'd stepped on the spines of some dried roadkill. He opened the fridge and took his favorite chilled slam-dunk gas-sold GX trainers from the freezer compartment. Rimmer just shook his head sadly. For 4.5 months he'd put up with this slob. Lister rarely washed, never brushed his hair. He put the dreadful in dreadlocks. The filthy things dangled permanently from the back of his stained leather Ushanka hat like a mummified hairy octopus. He slouched around the ship dispensing his so-called cheeky quips to the apparent mirth of poor souls who thought his hamster-cheeked grin was somehow disarming and vaguely attractive in a primordial way, rather than a tempting toothy punchbag for anyone with standards. Unfortunately, the little git had a point. Rimmer had been through the wretched book daily for the last 4.5 months, and he still hadn't got past page 7. And to be brutally frank, he hadn't really understood pages 1 to 6. Indeed, even the cover slightly confused him. It's not that he wasn't officer material. That was in no doubt whatsoever. It was in his DNA. It coursed through his veins. Generations of Rimmers had marched before him, proudly parading their pips, and he wasn't about to break that noble tradition. Every single penny cent he'd earned had been set aside for his promotion ceremony. The massed bands of the Ionian Dragoons would not come cheap, my friends, nor would the hire of the massive Hermes Mensa Stadium, with a private box and 3-star catering for his entire extended family. A tailor-made uniform from Mr. Dressright of Danube Platum, established 2322, as worn by the Ionian First Family, had already set him back a very pretty penny cent. He replaced the book in his locker and took out the ornate hat box, tenderly removed the top, and folded back the luxurious purple crepe paper to reveal his hand-blocked officer's cap. Technically, he wasn't quite entitled to wear it as yet, but he honestly believed, in the face of all experience and reason, that it made him more attractive to the ladies. He put it on, with due ceremony, tipped it to the regulation 5-degree angle, and stepped to the mirror. He turned away and looked back again, just to make sure he was seeing what he was seeing. Lister? Yeah. Did you write something on my headband? Lister pretended to think about it. Oh, yeah. Did you write, "Kiss me quick"? Yeah. With a K and a W? Yeah, I think I might have. And did you use indelible ink?
No, I wouldn't do a thing like that. I used inedible ink, his proud priest. Oh, hang on, though. I may have misread it.
If you need
Silently, without changing his expression, Rimmer removed the hat and replaced it reverently in the box. A line had been crossed. That band was pure 24-karat gold and woven into the finest Venusian silk. It would cost a fortune to restore it. Sorry, Lister chirruped. Thought it might make you more attractive to the ladies. Rimmer turned slowly and smiled ominously. And speaking of ladies, how is your delightful romance going with the fragrant Miss Kachansky? No doubt you're looking forward to a raunchy weekend of unbridled shore leave with lashings of rumpy-pumpy, bouncy-bouncy, and how's your father? Lister's eyes narrowed. Oh, wait! Rimmer face-palmed himself. I foolishly forgot. She dumped you, didn't she? Discarded you like a snotty tissue. Wiped you away like a smear of bird guano on a windscreen. Crushed you like an obese frog under a steamroller. That's enough, Rimmer. Lister's voice was a dangerous low growl. Sorry, that was insensitive. Wisely, Rimmer stopped, and then foolishly continued. No idea how it slipped my mind, especially with you sobbing all night after she ran back to her ex as fast as her little legs could carry her and immediately set a wedding date with him and all. As if you were just a frivolous, meaningless interlude, like some kind of half-time slice of orange she sucked dry, then tossed into an old bucket.
Your hands only.
Holly's virtual head appeared on the sleeping quarters screen, very possibly saving Rimmer's anal crypt from having to accommodate a chilled slam-dunk gas-soul GX. His intervention was probably not an accident. The omnipresent macro-computer constantly watched everything and everyone on board, and was uniquely skilled at spotting and dispersing potential trouble. Mr. Rimmer, please expedite your movements. Your tender leaves in 0.25 hours. He turned slightly to Lister. All right, Dave. You need to get a lick on, mate. 15 minutes.
I'm the innkeeper.
Lister sighed
Attic room.
deeply. You've just
Well,
saved a
we
life,
don't
Hol.
have an attic room.
Can't sudden
You can
wait
have
to
the
get
one
away
on the
from this
left.
snag-brained,
Make yourself
vindictive
at home.
loon.
We don't get a lot of travelers.
Will you
here.
better give me a 5-minute start, Lister? I don't want people thinking we're together. Believe me, that's my plan. Rimmer froze slightly. He absolutely positively needed to have the last word in these regular arguments, but he couldn't think of one. Instead, he settled
So
for
you're
what
the
he
dragon
mistakenly
lord.
imagined was a
So
look
much
of
better.
disdainful dismissal,
I think you're looking
donned
good.
his boarding lanyard,
We need to
and
talk.
marched off down the corridor.
Follow me.
Then realized he hadn't yet put his trousers on, and had to march back in with as much insouciance as he could muster. Lister shook his head, slipped his own lanyard on, and slouched out of the sleeping quarters. Holly simultaneously watched the remaining stragglers head off to the shuttle bays. Peterson swaggered down Corridor K, Novello 27,
Now,
aglow with the ridiculous optimism which invariably ended with his spending the night in a cell, a hospital bed, or in the very best of circumstances, a gutter. Young Clifford Pear sidled cautiously along Corridor N, Novello 31, clutching his Fodor's Guide to Cultural Titan and his emergency banana. Kachansky and her hen
the
posse
Greybeards
clucked
seem
and
to think you're
chuckled
the Dragonborn.
and enjoyed an impromptu but friendly inflatable penis joust as Elevector C
so.
zipped
I
towards
just
the
handed you
embarkation
the horn of
zone.
Jurgen Windcaller. Does that
Captain
make you
Hollister
Dragonborn?
took the
And
executive
now you have
induction
it. I
pod
knew
along the
Greybeards
outer
were
loop
taking it
with
was
his
the only way I could
zero-G
be
golf
sure this
bag.
wasn't a Thalmor
The
trap.
woods clad in alarmingly woolly
Like I said,
Tam
Randy,
O'Shanter
I'm
head
part of a
covers,
group.
which
If
his
you really
wife had
are
accidentally
Dragonborn,
put
that
into
is.
the rubbish 11 times.
Before I tell you any more,
The jingling
I
spurs
need
of
to make
Tex
sure I can
Garcia's
trust
boots
you.
echoed around the metal
We
Starbridge
remember
boarding tunnel
you're
to
the
Tender
only
D,
one that can keep
in rhythm
Can
with
you
his
do it?
whistled rendition
Can you
of
devour?
Streets of
Good.
Laredo.
And you'll have a chance to prove it to me soon enough.
Dave Lister walked down Corridor 21, Novello 3, and turned
Dragons aren't
right.
just They weren't gone.
Dave
Now
Lister walked
something's
down
happening to
Corridor
bring them back to life.
21, Novello 3, and turned
A few
left.
years ago, I
Arnold
know,
Rimmer,
and I figured
now
out
fully
we're going to go
trousered,
there, and
also
you're going to
marched
kill that
purposefully down
Heinz
Corridor
wolf.
21,
There's an
Novello
ancient
3,
I need to get
maintaining a
into my
safe,
traveling gear.
non-social
Give me a minute
distance
and I'll be
from
ready.
Lister. Holly temporarily curtailed all non-essential functions and re-examined his last few observations.
That's better.
Lister
Let's get on the road
had
to
simultaneously turned left and right
I'm right
at
behind
the
you.
same junction,
I am
hadn't he?
sworn to carry your burdens.
He rewound his security footage, and the left-turning Lister wasn't there.
Lead, I'll follow.
Had he imagined it? This was impossible, since his perception was perfect. Could it be some kind of minor malfunction in some pesky subroutine or other? He started running his myriad self-diagnostic systems.
You've got the in till I get back. I've got your back.
Chapter
How can I
2.
serve you, my Thane?
Red Dwarf, Shuttle Bay approach. Lister was momentarily disoriented. Which way was the shuttle bay again? As he regained his bearings, the doors of Elevector's
You're okay, my guy. You're okay. Did we
spilling
leave
out
there
a
or
gaggle of
something?
dangerously happy women,
Alright.
completely
Hello.
oblivious to their surroundings,
Alright.
wielding various inflated iterations of male anatomy, almost bundling him over. And in the middle of them,
You lead,
Her.
I'll follow.
Chrissy Kachansky. For one hideous moment, their eyes met, and he realized deep in his bowels that it was actually happening. She was going through with it, marrying Phil or Fred or Tarquin or whoever the smeg it was.
Way. We can
He
travel
tried to
together
say
and split
something
up.
devil
Do
may
you
care,
need
yet
something?
amusing, but all that came out was the
Kind
strange
word.
word.
There's an ancient dragon burial near there. We can get there before it happens. Maybe we'll learn how to stop it.
Way to go, Dave. Show her what she's giving up. Her mouth
What
opened
is it?
ever so slightly, as if she was going to say something. Then a friend
Let's
tugged
get going.
playfully on her elbow, and they were gone. He tilted back his cap and wiped the sweat slick off his eyebrows. He waited till the celebratory clamour had faded down the corridor, then set off again briskly, so that snakewit Rimmer wouldn't catch him up. He wasn't even supposed to be here. An increasingly out-of-control Monopoly board pub crawl round London Earth had led him to waking up naked, tied to a bronze statue of the President of Mars, on a cargo ship bound for the Saturnian moon of Mimas. His only hope of getting home again had been to sign up to Red Dwarf. Except, it turned out, Red Dwarf wouldn't be heading back to Earth for 5 years. 5 years. 1,825 evenings with Rimmer.
Oh.
With his insane bunk room rules and his bizarre nocturnal Irish jig routine when he thought Lister was asleep. It was beyond cruel and unusual. The romance with Chrissy had provided a brief respite from the incessant misery, but the breakup had made things intolerably worse. Lister was beginning to actually believe he had somehow wandered into the tense circle of hell.
Hello, my dude.
It really did seem to him that he was being relentlessly tortured for all eternity, with no prospect of escape, by a minor demon with flared nostrils and an expensive hat fetish.
Thank you.
He had to get out of here. He reached the cavernous shuttle bay, lined with a series of huge doors. 2 of them, on opposite sides, were open to the star bridges, which led to each tender. On his left was the U-shuttle, heading uptown. The captain himself was queuing there with a number of other officers. Ahead of him, the hen party were already joyfully frolicking down the star bridge. Mercifully, Lister himself was boarding the D-shuttle, on the other side, to downtown. It was a mercy on 2 counts. A, his entire life savings probably wouldn't buy him a bag of broken biscuits uptown. And B, there would be no further chance of bumping into Kachansky and her chortling gang of dirigible phallus wagglers. As he crossed the star bridge and ducked into the D-tender, he took the proffered security bangle and gravity compensators from a stern-looking, thin-lipped shore patrol woman with a black SP helmet over her military bun, the faintest suggestion of a nascent moustache, and a bootlegged electronic billy club that looked like it had stung Godzilla. He decided she wasn't the type to appreciate bants, kept his head down, and sank gratefully into a seat. The D-shuttle did not enjoy the relative luxury of the U-shuttle. 2 rows of rusty, uncomfortable steel bucket seats ran facing each other on either side of the bulkheads, which held video walls
I'll come back
showing
here.
restful images of green fields and snow-capped mountains.
Remember, we're not looking
Lister
for trouble.
clamped the gravity
We need to get the
compensators
plane
over
going
his
as fast as
sneakers,
we can.
closed his eyes, and prayed they would be hit by an asteroid. Rimmer reached the shuttle bay and regarded the two queues on either side. One comprised a line of scruffy lowlifes, the other a well-groomed selection of unmistakably superior folk.
Where the fuck are
Clearly,
you going?
that was the queue for him. As he got closer, he spotted Captain Hollister himself. The great man was deep in conversation with a couple of flight deck officers. This was Rimmer's chance. He had a special new salute he'd been working on for some time. He'd only been able to develop and practice it while the loathsome layabout Lister was asleep. Instead of his much-maligned triple-hoop classic, this new configuration involved many more vigorous angular elbow contortions, combined with a complex combination of swishings of the leg, such as seen in an Argentinian tango. It actually doubled as quite a good Zumba workout. His fond hope was that its official recognition and adoption would allow him to skip the whole astro-navigation requirement and leapfrog directly into officerhood. He shoulder-charged his way rather rudely through the line, mumbling, "Emergency, emergency, copy in," he told himself. "Devil take the hindmost, fortune favours the brave." Fortune, unhappily, doesn't favour the idiot. And his spirited rendition of the salute, which frankly he pulled off perfectly, elicited only stares of incomprehension and fear. "Captain Hollister, sir! How lovely to meet you again!" Hollister looked at him coldly. "And you are?" "You're such a tease, sir. I actually dined at your table 5 years ago, in fact."
So,
Rimmer waited for recognition to cross the captain's face. When it didn't, he carried on. "Rimmer, Arnold J. Technician class. Technician class. Allow me to carry your
Actually, they
golf
feel
sir."
quite tired.
The captain reached to stop him,
we may both
but
end
Rimmer
up
was
dead,
swift in
but
his
at least it gets
civility.
me out of Riverwood.
He swept up the zero-G bag in one hand, misjudging its weight, and immediately spilt all the clubs in a noisy cascade onto the metal floor. Then he clumsily tried to gather them together again, whacking the shins of several of the officers unfortunate enough to be behind him. "Just leave them, Skimmer."
Keep a sharp
"Rimmer,
lookout.
sir,"
We can't
Rimmer
afford any
corrected,
delays.
then realized that was probably a bad idea. "Rimmer, huh? I'll make a note of that." "No, you were right first time, sir. Skimmer. Arthur Skimmer. I'm a bad sort, sir, and not to be confused with the excellent near officer Arnold Rimmer, whom I look up to like a young god."
Better to stick together.
Hollister
I
peered
don't
at
want
his
you to get
lanyard.
yourself killed before we
"Is that why you've got his boarding pass?" Rimmer's eyes darted about alarmingly. Yes, I'm just going to take it to him." "Well, he'll be over there." The captain nodded at the D tender queue. "This is the queue for the Uptown shuttle." Aye, sir. Yes, sir. You're absolutely right in every way, sir." "Please don't salute again." "I wasn't going to." "Yes, you were." "Yes, I was, but it won't be necessary because I'm going to take the wonderful Mr. Rimmer's boarding pass over to the other queue. He's probably decided to go with the lesser people as part of his relentless charitable works. Anyway, I'll give him your best, sir." "No, don't do that. Will you just please go away? Your tender's about to leave." Indeed, the sign above the D shuttle doors was flashing last call.
We'll cross the white
Rimmer
river
half
and
turned,
to the-
then turned back and thought about saluting again. Decided not to, turned fully, and took off pell-mell towards the shuttle, only to trip and fall calamitously over the spilt golf clubs. Without looking back, he leapt to his feet and carried on running as if nothing had happened. Nicely handled, he thought, genuinely. The captain picked up his bent and ruined clubs, shaking his head sadly. Now he remembered Rimmer. Corporal Bile was reaching for the secure door button, just as a thin, lanky idiot almost bustled her over. She laid her billy club across his chest,
I
where
doubt
it
the
throbbed
Palmers are
threateningly.
aware of it yet, so we should be safe.
"No, mister! You are late!" Rimmer drew himself to his full height. Well, obviously not. The bay doors are clearly still open. Ah! A bolt of electricity sizzled through his body, sending him to the floor, writhing and twitching, barely managing to control his bowels. Bile looked down at him with a contemptuous sneer. Rimmer's blurry eyes travelled from the pulsating torture device up a muscular arm to her corporal's stripes. He felt a strange and unusual cramping in his solar plexus, and his skin sang like a rasher of bacon on a barbecue. Most peculiar. What was this feeling? Surely not just the after effects of the tasing. He'd been tased many times before. Bile barked. Get up! Am I going to have trouble with you, boy? Rimmer struggled to his wobbly feet and shakily attempted a boring regular salute. No trouble from me, Mum. I'm terribly sorry, Mum, he responded in a quivering squeak. Don't call me Mum. I'm not your arsing mother. You address me as Corporal. Right now, Mr. She glanced at his lanyard. Rimmer, I need you to take this security bangle and these gravity compensators and stick your skinny, useless backside down, right there. And do not move. She pointed with her club at the seat next to Lister, who was desperately trying to look invisible. But, did you just say but to me, boy? Did you say but? The only but that interests me is the but I will be brutally kicking over to that seat if it is not occupied by the time I get to the end of this sentence. She stared at him violently. Rimmer blinked. Is that? Did you? Ingrid thumbed the billy club power button. Yes, I understand, Corporal, sir, ma'am, Rimmer gabbled. Ask being put down in the chair right now. Bile turned to close the door. Arse now down, Corporal. Arse deployed in correct position. She turned very slowly round to face him, squinting. Was this maggot taking the piss or what? She forked 2 fingers at her eyes, then turned and forked them towards him. She had her eyes on him. Rimmer stared at the ground, not daring to look at her. He felt a peculiar, unfamiliar warmth in his belly. What the devil was going on? Lister had initially sat between 2 people, but the woman on his left had furrowed her brow, wrinkled her nose, and moved away to the only other vacant seat at the front of the shuttle. He suspected the warming sneakers had begun to melt the furniture polish coating his socks. So much for seals and protects. Now he had to travel down to the surface next to the very last person in the universe he wanted to be next to, with the possible exception of Phil, Fred, Tarquin, Bastard Ears, or whatever he called himself. The light dimmed for launch as the seat restraints clunked into position. There was a queasy lurch as the shuttle disengaged from the mothership, followed by a small moment of weightlessness as they passed beyond Red Dwarf's artificial gravity field before the G compensators kicked in. The tender began to tumble towards Titan. The video walls flickered on.
Why are you heading to Windhelm?
D shuttle for downtown Xanadu.
I feel like I need to take a wee break from a minute.
After the usual Jupiter Mining Corporation logo and annoying fanfare, the screens filled with various images of laughing vacationers, sipping mind-bogglingly outlandish cocktails, dancing in glamorous moonlit groves, delighting in sophisticated cabaret, dining upon unbelievably exotic interplanetary delights, while in the background, a sultry singer intoned the classic, Fun, 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 in the sun, sun, sun. A ridiculously perky voiceover chirped, Welcome to Titan and the bustling spaceport of Xanadu, catering to all of your entertainment and leisure requirements. Peterson grinned wickedly at his neighbor.
From John Growth to Southampton, yes sir, I've been around.
The giant aquavit-breathed Dane wasn't sitting next to him.
Enjoy the luxurious splendor of Uptown with its 5-star casinos and hotels and some of the solar system's finest cuisine and entertainment. Or, if you're on a budget, take in the thriving street life of downtown Xanadu with its quaint alleyways, unusual shopping opportunities, and bustling marketplaces. Tex Garcia glanced over at that ornery shore patrol woman. She had her peepers entirely focused on the panty-waist chucklehead she'd tased. He surreptitiously slipped off his security bangle, placed it on the deck, and gently ground the mechanism under the heel of his boot. He straightened and slipped the bangle back on, smiling to himself. He wasn't no greenhorn. He knew something the rest of them didn't. Yet. We hope you enjoy your shore leave, and you'll have a safe, fun-filled visit, as long as you remember to bear a few simple things in mind. The screen elegantly dissolved to a giant skull. Certain death lurks in every corner of downtown. This was delivered with such chirpiness, only half the crew gasped. It can definitely be a fun destination, but remember, the screen now teemed with a worrying selection of unsavory-looking characters. It is also home to every kind of low-life con merchant, gangster, prostitute, huckster, techno-grifter, and unbelievably gruesome transmittable disease known to humanity. And that's not to mention the incontinence-inducing, genetically altered wildlife. A hideous chimera with the body of an ancient reptilian leviathan, its gaping maw ranked with countless scimitar-sharp teeth, a trio of bullwhip-like lashing tongues dripping with toxic drool, and a threshing spiked tail suddenly hurtled towards the camera, causing several piercing screams, mostly from Rimmer. The screens now showed a crew member kissing a beautiful woman, a romantic goodbye under a sign, House of 1,000 Pleasures. In particular, if enjoying physical interaction with the natives or domers. Peterson turned his ruined graveyard smirk to Pear again. If you need condoms, I have plenty of condoms. Pear shrank deeper into his seat and pointedly pretended to read about Icascian neo-impressionism. Be alert that they may be carrying the spores of Apium phylactic mutatio, the asteroid-spawned chloroparasite that will painfully transform your genitalia into a celery-like plant form. The screens cut abruptly to the same crew member, stretched out on a medical bench, his groin bulging and agitating alarmingly. Suddenly he screamed as his flies burst open and a writhing bunch of green stalks popped out. There was a horrified silence. Peterson leaned over to Peach again. In fact, you could have all my condoms. Another hazard to be aware of. The chirpy commentary moved on to warn about the potential horrors of the mind tattoo parlors and rampaging rogue noise who jumped their programming. But Lister tuned out. He didn't care. Depression, he was finding, was a real physical thing, like living submerged in a thick, gloopy brown soup that made everything an effort, moving, breathing, thinking. He was snapped out of his maudlin reverie by a sharp pain in his hand. He yelped and looked down. Rimmer was gripping it, staring at the screen with a terrified rictus horror grin on his face as the commentary moved on to even more alarming terrors. Lister wrenched his hand free. It was bad enough to be lovelorn, but being incarcerated for the next half-decade with this pudwax sitting next to him, that was too much. He needed a plan. Could he simply go AWOL? He glanced at the shore patrol woman opposite. There were squads more of them down on the surface. He'd be pursued, friendless and broke. He had 3 creds left in his account. It wouldn't even get him a monkey rickshaw to the end of the street. His eyes were drawn back to the screen by a giant red flashing warning logo and alert siren. A different, sterner voice raced through a disclaimer announcement. Jupiter Mining Corporation reminds all employees that no contraband, illegal substances, explosives, or on-world life forms may be brought aboard the ship on return. The penalty is incarceration in suspended animation in the stasis booths until you are returned to your point of origin, and permanent debarment from future employment throughout the system. No exceptions. Lister's eyebrows wiggled like sidewinders. Now that tickled the scallion. The video walls switched to the tender's nose cam for a breathtaking view of their descent to Titan. With the staggering background of the mighty Saturn and its majestic rings, the settlement of Xanadu appeared, perched on the surface like a series of interlocking giant soap bubbles. As the craft fell towards the spaceport, the structures under the domes bloomed into view. In the distance beneath the largest dome, a dazzling array of gleaming skyscrapers nestled betwixt neat, grid-patterned streets, with swarms of tiny jet vehicles buzzing relentlessly overhead. But directly below the shuttle, as the dome's mighty airlock doors yawned open to swallow them, a spidery network of random, ramshackle, low-lying, dilapidated shantytown constructions loomed unalluringly. The lights dimmed again, as the spaceport's jaws ingurgitated the tender and clamped together overhead. There was a jolt as the local gravity field took over from the compensators around 30 feet above the landing pad. The maneuvering jets set them down smoothly. A moment's silence, and then the lights flickered back on, and the video walls flashed, doors to manual. Officer Bile emancipated herself from her seat restraint, stood, and in an alarmingly loud voice announced, "Okay, listen up, squids. To give you knuckleheads half a chance of actually surviving this surface trip, the person next to you will be designated your security amigo. You will spend your entire trip alongside each other." Lister and Rimmer swapped alarmed glances. Surely she didn't mean... They both struggled in their seats in an attempt to run screaming in opposite directions, but the restraints held them in. Bile declaimed, "Activating security bangles! No!" She swiped a touchpad, and the bangles on their wrists illuminated and buzzed. Lister tugged on his, and Rimmer's left arm came along with it. "You're now safely tethered together with your security amigo by an unbreakable magnetic virtual chain." She was clearly trying not to laugh at the rampant despair that always accompanied this announcement. Clifford Pear cringed as he was enveloped in a bear hug by the giant Dane. "This is great. We're going to have so much fun together, you and me. Am I right?" Yeah. Pear fake grinned.
I'm just not feeling it. Just not feeling it. Really just zoning it tonight. It's tired as well. It's not really 11. I might do a wee bit of writing than that, but I just don't feel like playing Skyrim or that while I'm doing it. You know, maybe just stick on a movie or something. I don't know, is this the shit? Is this...
Poor Rogie. If you're feeling charitable, sure thing. It's yours for a day.
I'm getting me to Titan. Yes, sir, I've been right. Oh, and also, I'll get some milk for that, yeah. There
Most people in I hope you'll stay. Drink for the thirsty, food for the hungry. All right then.
Yeah, I'll give my man a wee rest there. Did we get a level there? I'm not sure. No, I didn't. Close enough. Okay, I think we'll call it there, so...
We could certainly use the business.
I've never seen you before. Leave me alone.
Alright, fucking hell, buddy. Alright, I'll see you later, alright? Bye-bye.